Good day, everyone, and thank you so much for joining C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz in its first annual Black Health and History Month events. This is day 28. We have one more day to go, but this is day 28, and I am so very, very proud to and honored. I feel special because I have Miss Ruby on with me, and she's a when it comes to medical billing and coding, when it comes to teaching patients how to stay off the I'm in medical debt list, she is in fact the person that you will want to go to speak to. She's dynamic in the fact that she covers both the physician side as well as the patient side. So we like to call her a provider patient
Patient
advocate
provider.
because that's what she does, right? But she's a ton of knowledge. She's been in the healthcare industry in revenue cycle management for over 30 something years. She is now also has added to her title the president of the AAPC New Hampshire chapter. So everyone that's in that chapter is from Madam President. You have you have an excellent person there that you can be mentored from and that you can learn from. She's quite busy on various various Facebook groups, as well as she's on LinkedIn, she's on TikTok, wherever it is information that's needed to be shared in reference to medical billing and coding and finances and helping patients understand what it is they should be looking for and what it is they shouldn't do when they call a doctor's office trying to get some information or the hospital trying to get some information when it comes down to finances. C.H.L.M.S Medi-Helpz Foundation, along with myself, are proud to have her join us this evening in her talk on, once again, how ways and tips for you to stay off that medical debt list. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over tonight to Miss Ruby. But before I do, I'm going to just give you her bio. Her name is Ruby Simmons. She is your medical billing mentor and revenue cost management course creator. She helps healthcare professionals and MBAs unravel their revenue confusion and create a system that streamlines a recurring path to getting their money. She also, once again, is very good with talking to patients when they call or, when she sees them and they're frustrated with what's going on and the bills that they have. She's also good with actually advocating for them and teaching them how to advocate for themselves. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Miss Ruby Simmons. Ruby, the floor is, I should say, the mic is all yours.
Thank you, Miss Sandra. And as you've heard, my name is Ruby Simmons, and I'm your medical billing mentor and owner of Blossom Revenue Cycle Solutions, where we are where we are a patient provider advocate, and we assist both the patient and the provider in understanding their revenue and their medical bills and helping each other to work together with the patient and the provider so that the provider gets paid for their service and the patient gets assistance for service for services that they can't get paid. So, in today's topic, what I want to really cover is basically understanding your bills, understanding your insurance, and understanding when you should and shouldn't pay your bills. So, as a patient provider advocate, one of the things I like to do is to educate my providers and educate my patients. I like to make sure that both the provider understands the insurances and how they function and understanding deductibles, co-pays, out of pockets, and what they should be collecting from the patient. And I like to educate the patients and in understanding their insurances so that they understand their policies and what they're responsible for, their co-pays, their deductibles, and their out-of-pockets, and when they may end up paying more for a certain service and when they may not, and how they can appeal and represent themselves to make sure that if they feel like the insurance did not pay properly, that they can still uh, fight for themselves or support themselves or represent themselves for any bills that they get that they feel like should not have come to them because the insurance may not have paid. There's so many different ways that a patient can get a bill once they are seen in a hospital. Not only do you get bills for any out of pocket that you may owe if you have not paid your out of pocket for the year. So at the beginning of the year, whenever your insurance renews, you usually get a deductible amount that you owe, a copay amount that you owe, and a out of pocket. And the insurance doesn't start to really fully pick up the tab until you meet and pay all of those charges that you get that have been applied to, let's say, your deductible and your out of pocket. You have a certain amount of out of pocket that you agree to pay when you sign your agreement for your insurance. And you also have a certain amount that's called a deductible that you have to meet. That's usually between, if you're single person, probably between 1,000 to, depending on your plan, because if you have a high deductible plan, it could be close to about 3,000. But if you have a family plan, you have your individual amount, and then you have your family amount that you owe. And that's where that slash comes in under the deductible on the front of your card. You'll see slash, you'll see something like 1,500 and then slash 3,000. The first part is your individual deductible as the person who's carrying the insurance. But the slash is what you have to pay total for your entire family. So you need to meet 3,000 for your entire family. And that's how you understand your deductible. Most people don't know what those numbers are on the front of their card. And it's very important that you learn how to read the front of your card. You can sometimes go on to the website of your insurance carrier and they'll have diagrams that'll help you learn how to read your card and understand your card. And that's something that I suggest that patients always do, or just, just individuals who have signed a contract with their employer to take on insurance and they want to make sure, they don't get any surprise bills. So they want to know, well, what do they pay? What do they need to pay out of pocket when they go see the doctor? On the front of your card, you'll also see your copay, which is what you would pay every time you go see your provider. Most copays are waived for like physicals, your annual wellness visits. But if you're any sick visits that you have, you owe a copay. And that's anywhere between $20 and $50. It depends on the type of plan that you have. And you have to pay that every time you're seen at the provider. And it has gotten to the point that insurances have made it a point to inform their providers that they have to make sure that they bill the patient for these copays and deductibles because it's part of the amount of the bill that the provider gets paid for their services. So a lot of times patients think that it's up to the doctor to that if they can write the balance off and things like that. But the insurances have kind of changed the rules of the games, and they're actually, if you're a provider and you're not collecting from your patients, you can actually lose your contract with that insurance carrier as a provider. So if you see that your provider is trying to make sure that they collect their copays from you and they collect their deductibles from you, that's really why, because they're penalizing doctors now for making sure that they get those out of pocket balances from the patients. So that's something to be aware of. If you are a patient and you need financial help, don't be afraid to ask for financial help, but know that if you need financial help, really need financial help, there is an application process that you would have to go through, and there's information that you would have to prove to show that you are actually indigent. You know, as a medical biller, uh, I've seen plenty of times where people try to apply for financial assistance and they really wasn't eligible. I could tell you some stories where because they do background checks and they pull credit reports on patients and things like that, depending on if it's a hospital or a large organization. It really depends on the financial process that that organization decides to put patients through. I've seen where people have applied for financial assistance and we found that they actually own a business in another state and they actually have a house in another state, and but they were seen in our state and they applied for financial assistance, but they didn't know that we would be checking their credit and doing background checks on them to see if they were actually financially indigent. And one of the reasons why that happens is because when you claim that you are financially indigent, you become eligible to apply for state benefits, which means that you can apply for medical assistance. And when you apply for medical assistance, you have to prove that you are financially indigent. And if you are not financially indigent, um, when you apply for medical assistance and they approve you and pay for your services, they will retract that money and they will come after you because you applied for Medicaid when you were actually not eligible for Medicaid. So that's kind of something that you want to keep in your mind when you apply for financial assistance or financial hardship, that it's very important for you to be truthful as best you can, because a lot of times they do find out information that you wouldn't think that they would find out about you when you apply for these services, because these services are actually for people who are really financially indigent. The other thing that you want to make sure is to apply for payment plans. If you can't pay for your services right off, or you want to make it easy for you to budget it into your lifestyle, payment plans can help you. And you can also work with your provider on doing lump sum payments, where if you pay the doctor a certain lump sum amount, they will give you a discount on the services. And then that way you can have the account paid in full faster, and you won't have to worry about it. They also have programs out there where some doctors have credit cards that they offer to patients that they can apply for to put the services on. That's easier for them to pay down than it would be to pay down a payment plan and things like that. Um, so that's up to the patient to decide if that's the way they want to go. I would say to make sure that you research the company that is giving the finances. They have had some instances where the financial companies that were used were not really upfront with what they were supposed to be doing um, when they supplied credit to the patient. And they found some instances of wrongdoing there, but you still want to research the company before you sign up for any loans or credit when it comes to balances that you owe. Other things that you want to take advantage of is if your employer offers you an HSA with your insurance plan. The HSAs are health savings accounts, and they have HSAs and HFAs, and you can put money aside. HSAs is where the insurance kind of put a money aside. I mean, the employer puts money aside for you to be able to pay balances on your medical claims. And then the HFAs are health financial assistance programs where you decide, how much you want to put into that account and to pay for your medical bills and your prescriptions and co-pays and deductibles. The
So
difference,
that would be if the sort of the HSA is the high deductibles.
yeah, it's the
You're
high
right.
deductible.
They're usually very, very, very high deductibles. The FSAs are your plans where you, the employee, are actually the one that you decide how much you want coming out of your check, and
Hmm.
also where do you want to spend that money at. One example of an FSA is that I currently see a nutritional specialist,
Hmm.
and my insurance doesn't cover it, but my FSA does. So we'll, use our FSA, give you like a little Visa card. We'll use our Visa card to pay
Hmm.
that amount off. But that is something that you definitely want to look into, both the HSA and the FSA.
Yes, and it's also important to understand that the HFAs, if you don't spend it, you lose it. The government will keep any balances that you do not spend up. And that's the difference between the HSA and the HFAs. So understand that with the HFAs, if you don't use it, you lose it. So it's important to be very good at judging how much money that you spend on your medical expenses. There is a limit as to how much you can put away, but sometimes, some years you may not be as sick as you was the year before, or you may not have as many medical bills as you did the year before. So you just need to be good at judging how much money you put to the side when it comes to those HFAs. Um, and some other things that I want to talk about is when you are financially indigent, but not financially indigent enough where you can get assistance from Medicaid or some other programs out there. There are patient advocate programs that you can apply for, like Patient Rising. You can go online and find those services and apply online. And what they do is they give you a case manager, and that case manager uses their knowledge of different programs that can assist you, and or grants and or organizations that may be in your area, like churches and free clinics and other organizations that can help you with paying your bills. So you're not just stuck with applying with Medicaid and using your HSA. There are other programs out there that can help you. Like in certain states, they also have programs like if you've been assaulted, they have the Crime Victims Assistance Fund. depending on your state. Not every state has it, but a lot of states do have Crime Victims Assistance Fund. Same thing with auto accidents. If you have an auto accident and you're living in a state where it's not mandatory for you to have insurance, they have the automobile insurance fund that helps with payments. So if you get into an accident and you don't have insurance, they can help you with payment of your services. And then there's other organizations outside, like I said, the free clinics that you can go to get your care or your follow-up care for any tragic accidents that you may have had, and you need to get follow-up services done, but you can't afford it. There's other organizations that can help you uh, with that. But one of the most important things when it comes to you and your bill is working with your provider to get your bill paid. So it's important for you to call both your insurance and both your the billing office of your provider to understand the balance that you owe. Some people choose to utilize their portals through their insurance carriers by keeping up on the EOBs and the EOPs that are within the system. Now, an EOB is called an explanation of benefits. And what that does is it tells you basically what you had done, the date you had it done, how much you're being billed, and it's telling you how much your insurance will cover of it and how much of it is applied to you as the patient in your out of pocket if you have an out of pocket balance left. A EOP is just an explanation of payment. And what that is those mostly go to the provider, and it's an explanation of how the insurance is paying the services to the provider. Most times when you see a provider and you fill out documentation either through the portal or you fill it out when you go into the office, they always give you a form that you have to sign that allows them to bill the insurance on your behalf. When you sign that form, it basically gives the provider authorization to bill your insurance on your behalf. If the provider does not bill that insurance on your behalf and sends the bill to you, and they don't collect on the monies that come from the insurance, you have the right not to pay that, because that bill is technically not you. It's your bill because it was services rendered to you, but you gave the provider permission to bill the insurance. So the provider should be billing the insurance for the services rendered. You can also call your insurance and submit the bill yourself, but if you sign that form that says that the provider should be billing, then I would call the billing department of the provider and tell them, hey, I have active insurance, and why have you not billed my active insurance? And you want to do that in a timely manner, because at a certain point, what happens is if you've gotten several bills and you haven't called the provider and said, hey, you need to bill my insurance, then if it's past the filing time limit, they can try to bill you for that service because you never called them in a timely manner and gave them your insurance information. There is something that is called timely billing when it comes to providers billing, and it's also when you bill for your services yourself as a patient. You have to bill services in a timely manner because they have filing time limits for insurances. Some insurances are 30 days, some are 3 months, some are 60, some are 6 months, some are up to a year. But those filing time frames are something that you need to make yourself aware of as a patient. So if you ever get a bill, you need to make sure that you call your provider in a timely manner and say, hey, I have insurance. Why are y'all not billing my insurance? And sometimes what happens is somebody missed putting the insurance into the system. And if they missed putting the insurance in the system, that could cause you to get a bill too. Sometimes, though, they do send statements out just for information purposes only. So make sure that you read your bill that you get in the mail or your statement that you get in the mail carefully, because sometimes it has a notation on there that says this is not a bill. And what it's basically telling you is that they're just telling you these are the services that you had rendered on this data service by this doctor, and this is the amount that we're charging for these services. And they probably billed it to your insurance. So if you get something that says this is not a bill, you should not be paying that statement at all, because it's not a bill. Now, if you get a statement in the mail, and there's a balance on it, and it says this balance is what you owe, and you feel like you don't owe it or you should owe it, you can pay it. But most times I say do the follow up before you pay it. Make sure that you actually owe that deductible. Because sometimes even the insurance carriers do not do a good job at keeping track of how much money you owe for your deductible and your out of pocket. And that's one of the important things you should do, important reasons why you should utilize your portals for both your physician side of billing and for your insurance side. You get portals for your insurance side, so you can look at your EOBs if you haven't received them in the mail, or you need to look at it and download it, and you're not, in your home office, but you want to look at it and take it to the doctor's office and say, look, this is what my insurance is saying, and do I owe this balance, or you have questions on it or anything. Utilizing your portals is really important, because it gives you the information you need to understand. One, on your insurance portals, it helps you to understand your policies, and two, it helps you to understand any services that you had rendered and how they paid the provider for the services, and if they paid the provider in full, and then you know that you should not be getting a bill. For your portal on for your provider, it's important to utilize that portal and understand the statements that you have on file, so you can see your balances most times that's in there. And what it can help you do is it can help you match up the statement to the EOB that you get from your insurance. You can match them up and see if you really owe them. And it can help you with organizing yourself. It can help you with organizing yourself and making sure that you have all that information for any end of year taxes that you might need that for, or just because you want to keep it for your budgeting, so that you know what you need to budget next year for, or what you're going to budget for, what you need to budget for in the current year, and you know that you didn't have that for your budget, so you had to come off of more money. So it'll help you plan for your budget for the next year. So that's the best way when it comes to utilizing your portals. But like I said, You should always, when you get a statement in the mail and it says that you owe a balance, always follow up on it before you pay it, and make sure you understand your plan and what your out of pockets are. Now, if you have services, let's say you have specialized services that you need to have done, and your insurance is saying, well, we don't cover that, but you really need to have this service done, and your doctor wants you to have the service done, there are ways that you can, if your insurance is employer based, you can appeal to your employer to cover the actual services. In which case, what happens is they open up a case and give you a case manager and look at basically why the provider is suggesting that you have this service done, and they will decide whether they'll pay it a lot or pay it or not. They call it a something determination. I can't remember what it's determination, prior determination, or something like that. I can't remember the whole name right now, but it's something. It's like a prior auth or a authorization or referral.
It will
Well,
be
it's
a
not like a referral.
predetermination. So you get a
That's it.
predetermination.
Predetermination.
Yeah,
Thank
you get
you.
a predetermination done. What happens a lot of times, and a lot of times what happens is that the medical provider, what they'll do is they'll actually submit it to the insurance company so that they can see how much of it's going to get paid. Whenever you're having a major medical surgery done, this is my suggestion and my encouragement is that you ask them to do a predetermination. Whenever you go to the dentist, the same thing. Ask them to
Mhm.
do a predetermination so that you'll find out how much it is that you'll have to pay out of your pocket. Because the last thing you want to do is to have this stuff done and then you turn around and get hit with $100,000 bill
Yeah.
because you didn't get a predetermination. So
Yeah.
that predetermination is something that the providers work out with the insurance companies, but they
Mhm.
let you know, okay, well, this is what we submitted and this is what they said we'll pay. They will pay, right? They can't tell you up front, but they'll send it to the insurance company. And whatever you have on that predetermination letter, make sure you keep a copy of it
Mhm.
with you, because if you get $100,000 bill after you had that predetermination letter, then you go back to instead of you paying that additional amount right up front, go back to the doctor, go back to the insurance company, and work it out where
Mhm.
you understand why it is that you're now having to pay for something that they have a predetermination on and you have it in writing.
Yes. And that's the same thing as if you have a prior authorization for a admit for a surgery that you are having done beforehand. You should get letters from your insurance carrier saying that they approved it. You want to keep those types of letters because they have your authorization on there, your case number on there, and if the insurance has some type of issue, which you would think that it's in their system, they should know, but not all the time. And they'll deny the service saying that there's no authorization on file because they know it's up to the doctor and or the patient to prove that an authorization was actually obtained. So it's always important to keep those types of documents. And I would say I keep mine for up to 3 years, but that's just me. Um, I just keep my insurance and all of my old insurance cards. I keep up to 3 years because if I get anything, any bills or any calls from someone saying, "Oh, we got this bill for you and you owe it," and it's like, "No, I had insurance during that time and I gave them my insurance," I have a copy of that old card, because if they didn't put the insurance information in the system and you gave it to them, that's not your responsibility. That's on them. It's only your responsibility if they keep sending you bills and you never, or you forget to give them your insurance and you never contact them back and give them that insurance information. Um, so those are ways to really keep yourself out of owing debt when it comes to balances after insurances, or having to pay your out of pocket for insurances. Now, let's say that you don't have any insurance at all, and you're indigent at this point. You can't afford to pay the bills. You know, you're and when I say indigent, it doesn't really mean that you're totally broke and poor. It just means that your income against what you owe in medical bills, they just don't meet. And what you can do is apply for emergency medical assistance. And what emergency medical assistance is it allows you to be eligible for medical assistance just for that service. So let's say you were skiing, enjoying yourself, you're skiing, you're carefree, and you hit a tree. And unfortunately, you broke your arm and your leg. And so now you are helicoptered to trauma and you have to have surgery. And helicopters are not cheap. Trauma is not cheap. So now you have to figure out how to pay these services. You're an entrepreneur. You don't have any insurance. You was just having fun. You didn't know that you was going to hit a tree and break your arm and your leg. So in those kind of cases, you can be eligible for medical assistance. And emergency medical assistance can help you get your bills paid. And like I mentioned also, they do have patient assistant programs, patient advocacy programs that can also help you with paying those bills. And if you need your follow-ups done to, like, let's say you need stitches to come out, well, they don't consider that an emergency when you've been treated for a certain traumatic injury or removal of your cast. They don't consider that an emergency. So you have to find somewhere that'll help you take off that cast or take out those stitches. And you can find a free clinic, or you can find a sliding scale clinic, or you can just find a doctor and negotiate an amount that you can pay for them to remove those stitches or to remove that cast. Don't underestimate the power of negotiation. And in some cases, if you know that this is a service that you're going to need to get beforehand, you can apply, you can talk to and negotiate with the provider beforehand and get a statement, or what do they call it? It's an estimate of the services that you're going to have done. And they'll send you an estimate. The only thing is that when you get an estimate, it's not a guaranteed estimate, because depending on the service that you're having done, there could be something that could cause the service to be prolonged, or it could cause the service to be shortened. In which case, if the service is shortened, then your estimate changes and you would owe less money. In the case where it's prolonged, you would probably owe more money on the estimate, because now the service went longer than expected, or there were complications. and things like that. So that changes the estimate of the bill. So understanding your estimate and that it could possibly change. It could possibly change uh, for there to be for you to owe less, but it can also possibly change for you to owe more. And that also negotiating with your provider to pay balances that you owe is always on the table. Um, some providers don't like to negotiate, but some providers are open to negotiation. This is where a lot of times you should always build a good reputation or relationship and rapport with the people that you see within the office that cares for you. And the reason why you do this is because you never know when you're going to need them to be able to support you in certain ways. So it's just always good to have a good relationship. And that's one of the things that I promote amongst patients and providers, is a good patient provider relationship, because providers need patients just as much as patients need providers. If a provider is not a good provider and does not render good services and does not do good customer service or good business, they can lose patients that way. And so it's really important to have a good reputation and a good rapport with your patients and your community as a provider, because those people in your community are the ones that will be coming into your office and giving you their insurance to pay for your services and paying their out of pockets. And I believe that I've covered pretty much everything when it comes to having balances. Now, remember, my name is Ruby Simmons, and I'm your medical billing mentor. I have an IG that is at Blossom RCS LLC. You can follow me there and ask me questions on there. You can also follow me on LinkedIn at Ruby C. Simmons, and you can find me on Facebook at Ruby C. Simmons. And if you are a medical biller or looking to learn medical billing, I have a Your Medical Billing Mentor support group that helps to mentor medical billing students. And I also create courses to help C-level and VPs and office managers understand revenue cycle management. Again, my name is Ruby Simmons, and I'm your medical billing mentor. And I really enjoyed speaking to you today. And I hope I was able to give you uh, some good information and education on how to keep yourself debt free and or work through your debt when it comes to your medical bills that you receive from any health issues that you may have. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate talking to you today.
Ruby, before you leave, I just want to ask you a question. And I'm
Mhm.
asking this question because I know the answer, but I want to get your side from the medical billing side. And then we'll go ahead and close it out. And that's this. A lot of people now are thinking, okay, well, I don't need to know nothing about no medical billing because they got that medical billing thing and we ain't responsible for it. And I know that you're not responsible for some parts, but the provider is not going to just walk away and say you owe me $10,000 and I'm never going to get my money. So, as far as that medical debt, are there certain situations where the patient is still on the hook when it comes down to medical debt if that money is indeed owed? Like that's not an automatic write off like most people are thinking.
Okay, so it sounds like you're talking about the No Surprise Act,
Correct.
where you if you get a bill in the mail and uh, they're saying that if you get a bill in the mail and you didn't have any knowledge of this bill, you don't have to pay it. Well, that's tricky, because let's say what kind of bill is it that you just received? in the mail? You know, did you just receive a bill from your provider because you owe deductible? If you owe a deductible, that's your responsibility. You signed a contract with your insurance carrier before you saw that doctor saying that you would pay that balance. So that's not a surprise. That's just that you don't understand what your out of pocket is for your insurance carrier. So that wouldn't be considered a surprise. What a surprise bill is let's say you had a surgery. You had an accident, you came through the ED, you said that, okay, we're going to have to do surgery on you. And you say, okay, well, do the surgery, save my life, do what you got to do, blah, 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 blah. You know that then the hospital is in network with your insurance. But what you don't know is that the anesthesiologist within the hospital that's going to be doing your anesthesia is not in network with your insurance. And you wouldn't know that at that point because you're getting emergency surgery done. So let's say they wheeled you up to the OR, but that OR is on one side of the building and it's a different part of the building than where you came from. And it's a different address. When you cross that hallway, that building is not in network with your insurance. But the other side of the building is in network with your insurance. And you get a bill because your services was rendered in the non-network part of the building, or your anesthesia was given by an anesthesiologist that was a non-network provider. That's a surprise bill.
Right. And so therein, as we close this out, gives the importance of us having Miss Ruby on tonight to talk about billing and talk about how you could stay off that medical debt list. Because yes, indeed, there is still a medical debt list. It just depends what's on that list, what codes are on that list, and what exactly happened. Which is why this is another important day where we talked about something that we've heard resoundingly over the past 27 days, and the 28th day, including today, is this: start talking to your providers. Start communicating with your providers. If you get a bill from them and you wasn't expecting that bill, call your provider up and ask them ask the front office, could you tell me what this is for? If you don't agree with what you're getting billed, that's when you get your insurance company involved. Your insurance company is not is not your enemy. They have concierges in the insurance companies that's what they do. They help, figure out the bill, see what's yours, see what's not yours, explain it to you. But no one is a mind reader. And so we can't, in any of us, patients, we can't read the doctor's mind. We don't know what's going on with them. We don't know, what they have set out or what they're thinking the course should be for us. Providers, the same way. They don't know what the patients are thinking. They don't know all of this information. They don't have it. So that middle person is the insurance company. And each of us, whether we're paying through our taxes, or whether we're paying for it through our employment, each of us is paying the customer service department at your insurance company to do exactly what I'm encouraging you to do before you wind up in medical debt, your garnishment. You can't afford to have your checks garnished. You need to buy food. You need to buy medicine. You got school, whatever. You got children at home. None of that's taken into consideration when it gets down to garnishment of your check, because you had steps that you should have been taking instead of throwing the bill up on the dresser and saying, "Oh, I'll get to whatever," or they can't do nothing. They can't report it to the credit union. They can't. They trust me. They can and they will. Right? There's certain instances, and we need to be aware of. There are certain times when the things can go exactly how they used to go. Some of it can't, they can't. Some of it could continue to go down that same rabbit hole. So take advantage of those resources. Use your most important tool that you own, which is your voice, your throat, to call a doctor and say, hey, I got this bill from you. What is this about? If they're not helpful with you, call your insurance company, get your insurance company rep on the line and say, I would like for you to call XYZ because I have this bill. They don't want to help me, but perhaps they'll help you. 9 times out of 10, especially if it's an in network contracted provider, they'll work with the insurance company because they know that their next contract that they're going to get for the up to keep them in network with that insurance for the next year is all tied to that patient experience. So they want to make sure that that patient experience is good for them. They don't want a negative patient experience. Too many of them, they ain't got no job. They don't have no money. They're now become indigent. We don't want that. We all need our jobs. We all need to keep pushing forward. So that's why I had Miss Ruby come on today and speak to us, because we do need to know what tips can I follow or should I be following to stay out of medical debt? Because medical debt is real. There's been some changes to it, but it is still real. So, with that being said, I am going to go ahead. Miss Carolyn said, "Good evening, everyone," and I want to say good evening to Miss
Good
Carolyn.
evening, Carolyn.
Lisa Monroe is telling you, "Thank you, Ruby, so much for being what you always do." Right?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I love teaching both providers and patients, and just anyone who's really interested in revenue cycle management and medical billing. Like I said, I've been doing this for 32 years. I started in it when I was 19 years old, and I've progressed. So I know everything from the front end to the back end, and I just really like talking about it and teaching people about it. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
listening, and I appreciate you having me today on your show.
Thank you so much. Hold on for thank you so much. And I want you to have the rest of a good night. And those of you who are listening, please tune in. Tomorrow is February 29th. It's the end of Black Health and History Month. We have a dynamic speaker coming on tomorrow. You do not want to miss Dr. Carol Scott as she brings us our final closing session tomorrow. So please, if you have time, please either pay attention tomorrow to the discussion by joining in, or if you miss it and you want it, just send me an email or send me something through LinkedIn or whatever and say, Sandra, I want to hear what happened on the last day so that I can make sure that you get it. Thank you all, and have the rest of a good day, a good night, a good evening, and during whatever time you're watching this.